Am I the a-hole for not going to my brother and now sister-in-law's wedding and for calling my sister-in-law a fat witch? I am 20 female and my brother is 28 male, and my now sister-in-law is 30 female. About 6 months ago, I actually stuck to a regime of weight loss, and it worked. I was 135 pounds and 5 feet 1, and now I am 105 pounds. 6 to 7 months ago, my brother gave me a heads up that his now wife, whom then I was kind of friends with, wanted me there as a bridesmaid. A few times I have gone to Starbucks with her and gotten our nails done together. I got busy with school and focusing on weight loss, so I didn't see them until this early June. Yes, of course there are breaks, but I wanted to rest in my apartment because I was burnt out from school. I appreciate them understanding I have school and can't make it when they were picking bridesmaid dresses or other things of that sort. The college I go to is across the country while we live in the East Coast. So when I saw them this late May 30 pounds lighter, my now sister-in-law said, "Why did you lose weight?" And I replied, "Because I felt I wasn't healthy. Now I feel my best." She frowned and didn't say anything. I just chalked it up to her being a bit nervous about her wedding. She had already sent me the photos of the dress and needed me to come for measurements, but I couldn't due to it wasn't in my budget as flight tickets are expensive. So they got me a FaceTime with a person who measures and makes the dresses based on that and helps me measure over a call. They weren't there while I was measuring. They were preparing for something else. So my brother, after the conversation that happened above, came up to me and asked me if I could put on a few pounds. He explained his now wife is jealous of how I look thinner than her. I asked to speak to her about this matter. She agreed to talk, and I told her that her big day should not be ruined by how big or small someone is, and we should love how we are. She got angry and told me it isn't hard to gain a few pounds in the next 3 weeks. I told her calmly I won't be attending if she thinks like this, and she started to lose her temper and started to insult me, saying that I used to be a fat cow and other things of that sort. So finally I just said, "I'm not coming to your wedding, you fat witch." My brother and our parents are calling me out and saying I messed up. Was I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. LMAO, to be honest, I feel like everyone is gonna come after me, but I'm gonna say not the a-hole. She is projecting on you because she's fat and has decided to do nothing about it. Good job, OP. I never complain when I see a heavier person taking up gym equipment because I understand how it can be daunting to start your journey to being healthy. The fact your family is calling you an a-hole and your brother is trying to force you to gain weight is pretty dumb. Forcing yourself to gain weight to please others is an eating disorder in itself. I'm pretty skinny, and my ex told me I needed to gain weight because he liked thick girls, or he was done with me. I developed an eating disorder for a few years, until I was finally happy with my thin self. Screw them. Being overweight is not healthy. And your sister-in-law sounds extremely insecure if she's jealous of her own fiancé's sister. I probably wouldn't go to her wedding, but it's up to you if you care to please your family and still remain close to them. Is she even fat? OP was 130 pounds and 5'1", became 105 pounds and is now smaller than sister-in-law. So it's implied at 130 pounds, she wasn't smaller than sister-in-law. Both of those are healthy weights, so sister-in-law is probably also a healthy weight, just bigger than OP who is now 105 pounds, which makes this whole thing even wilder in my opinion. Sister-in-law is way out of line, not a-hole OP. Not a-hole. Telling someone to gain weight for their own vanity is one of the most narcissistic things I've read on this forum. I would have called her worse names. Saying I messed up, not to me. It sounds like you just avoided an expensive airline ticket. People like her don't deserve a place in your life. Make her apologize for her comment and her demand. She also gave back what she got from sister-in-law. Sister-in-law can dish it, but can't take it. OP is not a-hole and awesome. Next story. Am I the a-hole for breaking my sister's engagement? My male 37, sister female 29 recently got engaged to the love of her life we'll call Derek, male 34. They've been dating for about a year and a half, and we the family have gotten to know Derek since the beginning of this year. We all love Derek, especially my dad and I. We watch F1 every weekend together with the rest of our friends. The engagement was announced about 3 weeks ago. We were all obviously excited. 2 weeks ago at a last GP I was talking to Derek, and at some point, the reason I might be an a-hole, my mind slipped. And I said something along the lines of, "It's great you found someone you love so much you would abandon having children." Sadly, my sister had to fight a battle with ovarian cancer when she was 16 to 17, which resulted in the surgical removal of her ovaries and, from what I understand, part of her uterus. Now, I didn't think much about my comment, but turns out she never discussed this with him. It was like a dropped a nuclear bomb of information. He said now it made sense why she always avoided discussions about children. Well, needless to say, the engagement broke, and they have now separated. And in the eyes of my sister and mother, I'm the a-hole who separated my sister from the love of her life. Everyone sucks here. Obviously, your sister shouldn't have lied and should be honest with him. So it's her fault the engagement ended. But also, what a horrible thing to say to someone. Like not having children is some huge burden, and that your sister needed to do more to justify him marrying her because of her ovarian cancer. My issue is, even though she can't physically have kids, there are other ways to have a family, like surrogacy or adoption. It's a dumb and unkind comment. Everyone sucks here. If you don't have thousands of dollars, you aren't doing any of those. That would be a completely different conversation than just, do you want kids? Everyone sucks here. I think your phrasing, abandon having children, was unnecessarily cruel, even if Derek had known about her sister's fertility issues. Additionally, it's also best to avoid talking about people's choices surrounding family planning, as that's private discussion that they should be having amongst themselves, unless they bring it up first. However, and in the eyes of my sister and mother, I'm the a-hole who separated my sister from the love of her life. Your sister brought this upon herself. Fertility issues can be a hurdle in so many relationships, but that's something that should have been discussed way earlier than into an engagement. Perhaps if he had known previously, they could have worked out a plan to have children in some other capacity, adoption, IVF, and surrogacy, etc. Quite frankly, Derek would have found out eventually about her lie after they were married, and divorce would have been worse. I mean, I can't have children, and that's something I told my now boyfriend in the 30 minutes of talking to him. That's important for many people, and you have to let them know, right? Not a-hole. This situation is fairly unbelievable. It is absolutely not okay to agree to marry somebody while hiding the fact that you can't have kids. If she had told Derek, he might have been okay with marrying her and adopting or using a surrogate. The reason their relationship ended isn't because she can't have kids. It's because she didn't tell him that, and now he can't trust her. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting my girlfriend to repay her school loans to her parents? So my girlfriend and I are planning to move in together after 3 years of relationship, and money came up as a point of discussion. We are both fine with splitting up expenses in a 50-50 manner. We live in the EU. She is in university while I am soon to be working as a decently, but not greatly, paid government employee. The problem is that my girlfriend years ago chose to move to a big city and study at a private university instead of a public one. Her parents, likely being overconfident in their economic possibilities, decided to pay for my girlfriend's studies, but at the condition of being paid back as soon as she gets working. Seeing that she could have chosen a public and cheap uni instead. And now she has to repay about 50,000 euros in a country with a median net salary of 20k. My girlfriend's degree is not really marketable, and such a debt would cripple her/our start in life, hurting us much more than it would hurt their parents not to get the money back. As an addition, my opinion is that parents should facilitate their kids' life, and they should not expect children to be economically neutral or positive to them. My girlfriend assured me that she would pay her parents back from her own salary. But really, that would be money coming out of our already thin paychecks, and I would end up needing to compensate for her initially low and then even lower salary after the loan payments. I told her that I do not care for her parents, and I feel morally fine cutting ties with them. I told her that we as a couple need to make us two a priority, and that I do not want to be collateral damage of her and her family's irresponsible decisions. I'm not suggesting to flip off her parents, but politely explain to them that we have a serious need of money, and they don't. She proceeded to get mad, reassuring me that we would not feel any monetary damage, which is literally untrue, and that eventually we will be fine. Now for the comments before reading the mini update. You're the a-hole. You don't have to live with her if this is so bothersome to you, but she owes her parents this money back. Your opinion that parents should facilitate their kids' life and they should not expect children to be economically neutral or positive to them. It's just that. Your opinion. It doesn't really matter to anyone but you. Exactly. And that's so mature of her to pay them back. Because she gave them her word and she is keeping it. And you do tell a lot about herself that honestly, she should think twice about. My kid has a job in her own apartment. She's insisting on paying me back for car repairs. I didn't have parents who cared enough to help me. Actually, no parents at all. So I very much want to help her out. This agreement was around before you were in a relationship with her. You want her to forgo repaying a debt because it might dip into your finances? If you can't handle having merged finances, don't get married or live together. You're the a-hole. In our finances. And frankly, yes. Dude, what do you think would have happened if she borrowed money from a bank? You can't just stop paying back your debt. Do you want to alienate your girlfriend from her family? Because attempting to get her to not repay the debt is gonna cause some conflict. You're the a-hole. Oh lord. So you just decided her parents no longer need to be in her life? Just because? Oh boy, you're at it. Very unfortunate that you took the one comment not calling you the a-hole and saying everyone else is wrong. Because he would rather lose family than money. Not his family, of course. Hers. The cute thing is, he thinks they will never need them in their life to cut ties with them. Future abuse flag. Pushing for family isolation. Edit/update. I'm done getting lynched. Most of those who commented did not read my post, did not get my point, downvoted my explanations, and know nothing about me, my girlfriend, and our relationship. Obviously, the downvoting of my clarifications reflects the need to light up my straw man, and I don't see any reason. I think I have been polite and discursive, and I have only gotten insults back. Probably shouldn't have asked teenagers how to handle adult life. I initially kept it out of the scope of this post, but I did help her these last times financially. I do not hold it against her, and I do not want her to pay me back. I want her to have a successful life, even if eventually we might not end up forever together. I don't want her to cut ties with her family, and I would hate for it to happen. That's why I suggested talking and explaining. I have been accused of wanting to control her money. Apart from the ridiculousness of the fact that I am barely trying to control my money, I have been getting groceries for her out of my 500 euro salary. I won't blame my girlfriend. I advised her against it. But ultimately, she made a choice as a 20-year-old something inexperienced girl. But her parents should have known better. Ultimately, I don't want to be the one paying 90% of the rent, utilities, and food because we need to repay a useless debt. I wish to establish a thorough and well-thought plan to make a family of us. Morally, it's wrong to fleece her parents, but it's more wrong to cripple us two for a decade. That makes me the a-hole, but it makes an a-hole that has a point. A valid one. Last story. Am I the a-hole for ignoring my in-laws when they don't use my actual name? The first time I met my in-laws, they called me Rose. My husband, then boyfriend, told them my name was Rosie, but for some reason, they assumed my actual name had to be Rose, and so that is how they first addressed me. I corrected them and said it was actually just Rosie. Father-in-law was like, "Oh, not a nickname?" I said, "No, not a nickname, my legal name." They both made faces, and I was kind of freaked out because while I have been asked before what Rosie is a nickname for, nobody outside of my third grade teacher made such a big deal over my name. After that, they tried a bunch of different Rose names to see which one it was. My husband told them repeatedly that my name was nothing but Rosie. Not really sure if they didn't believe us, or were hoping I would adopt one of them. I have been called Rosalie, Rosalind, Rosemary, Roseanne, Rosabelle, Rosella, Rosamond, etc. Each time they have been corrected. After a little while of calling me Rosie, they just went back to saying Rose. They have introduced me to others as Rose, called out my name as Rose, and they won't stop. Now that I'm about to be a mom myself, I am less patient and understanding of this, so I started to ignore them when they call me Rose. They dislike that. Last time, I did it in front of other people my in-laws know. My husband was laughing so hard and said his parents' rude behavior deserves being ignored. They feel like I'm petty and say Rose just sounds more like a grown woman than Rosie does. And why can't I let them call me Rose? I told them because Rose is not my name, and they are trying to make a point about my name, and I do not like it. They told me at the very least I should not be ignoring them like that in front of others, and it's embarrassing to call me Rosie in front of other adults. Am I the a-hole? Not a-hole. Or you can ramp it up a notch and call them something completely different than their names. You could literally call them mother-in-law and father-in-law and tell them that works better for you. Or Eleanor and Richard. Those sound like grown-up names. And make sure to call them the wrong names in front of others, like their friends. I have a feeling they will feel embarrassed and disrespected, though from the sounds of it, I don't know if they will truly get the point. May get them to make the change, then call you the right name anyway, though just to stop you. Nah, they will go straight with offended. More so when she points out that this is the exact thing they do to her. Boomers really don't like the taste of their hypocrisy. Not a-hole. They're super disrespectful. I'd name my kid something like Jenny or Billy instead of formal versions, just to take them off. Our son will actually be Dex, not Dexter, or any similar formal name, so we know there is going to be some unhappiness there. I once had a high school teacher call on me using my sister's name. I knew he was talking to me, but I ignored him. He asked why I wasn't answering, and I said, well, that's not my name. If you want my sister, she's in Kansas attending college. If you want me to answer, I respond to Little Red. He didn't appreciate being called out in front of the class, but the teacher never called me by sister's name again. Not the a-hole. If they don't want to get ignored, then they simply need to call you by your correct name. That is your name, so they shouldn't be embarrassed. And if they introduced you properly to people, then they wouldn't feel embarrassed to call you by your real name. You aren't the one being petty. They are for refusing to use your name. I'm glad that your husband can see the humor in this and has been repeatedly telling them to use your real name instead of telling you to go with the flow to keep the peace. He told me their faces were priceless a couple of times when I have pretended they were not talking to or about me. Mostly I try not to look too over at them when they call me Rose. Defeats the purpose. Sometimes my husband will even chime in with, "Who is Rose?" or "I don't think there's a Rose here."